This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're fortunate tonight to have as our guest a candidate for the United States Congress from the 2nd District, Becky Gerritson from Elmore County, an active Tea Party activist in state politics, and very attractive young candidate for Congress. She's not that young, but she's pretty young, a lot younger than me. We're fortunate to have Becky on the show tonight. You know, our election, y'all, is right around the corner. It's March 1st, and the presidential race is heating up in Alabama. The congressional races are heating up, and this is probably the best congressional race in the state this year, and she's challenged the incumbent. And Becky, I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Becky has gotten somewhat nationwide renown as a grassroots activist, political activist. You know, one of the worst things I ever saw happen, and I think you brought this out, was the Obama administration targeting groups that are conservative groups. Tell our voters, I mean our viewers, kind of how you got involved. How long ago? Because I remember seeing your name surface 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, with the Tea Party movement, being identified with the Tea Party movement. But they actually had the IRS targeting conservative groups throughout the country, and probably your group.
Oh, yes, yes.
Tell the story of that, Becky, if you would.
Sure.
That's kind of how you got involved. You had no idea at the time you'd run for Congress.
No.
How many years ago was you first got started?
2009 is when we started the Wetumpka Tea Party.
6 years ago, 2009. Kind of elaborate with our viewers how you got involved, and you were a housewife, you know, there in Wetumpka, and your husband's in the military. We'll get into that later on, maybe. And then you have one daughter you homeschooled who's recently gotten married. Does she live in the 2nd District?
She does.
She'll get to vote for you.
Yes.
Good. Well, tell our viewers how you, in 2009, give the history and the background of how that movement. I'm kind of curious how, is it that an organized group, or is it loosely organized? If you don't mind asking how that started and everything.
I think at the end of President Bush's era, people across the country were really concerned at the direction we were going. The spending was completely out of control. 2008, the bailouts had just happened. Many of us who were paying attention realized that the new president was not a conservative. Not that he ever proclaimed to be one, but we just really knew that the direction of the country was going very much to the left. And I think it was the bailouts of the banks, it was the stimulus bill, it was the takeover of car companies. And in February of 2009, Rick Santelli had a rant on TV about, do we need to have another Tea Party to protest all of these taxes and all of this big...
Thus the name Tea Party.
That's where, and it stands for Taxed Enough Already.
I didn't even know
Yes.
that. That shows how ignorant I am. I didn't know that's why it was named a Tea Party.
Yes.
Taxed Enough Already. And it began around 2009.
2009, February is when the first started happening across the nation. But then word kind of got out across the country, so they decided, well, tax day would be a great day. So April 15th, 2009, there were over 2,000 Tea Party protests that went on across the nation. And my husband and I, actually my husband came to me and said, you know, Montgomery's going to have a Tea Party on tax day. Why don't we have one in Wetumpka? Because we have so many older people that aren't going to want to fight the traffic. Let's just do it at the park. And so we had never done anything political. You know, we'd always voted, always been conservative and patriotic, but never involved in politics. But I was very concerned, and I knew we had to do something. We needed a voice. And so I got on talk radio. Never even listened to talk radio. Someone told me, you need to go on a couple of shows, call Greg Budell, get on his show, tell him about the Tea Party. So I called up and said, hey, on April 15th, we're going to have a Tea Party. Just come on out if you're upset with the way things are going, and you know, let's get together. And we prayed for 50 people to come. We had 460 show up at the Wetumpka Tea Party event.
How many came to the Montgomery one?
1,000, 2,000. I mean, it was very big. But we were blown away, just in shock.
It was a total voluntary citizen.
Yes. Citizen-led.
That's what the whole thing has been, the
Yes.
beauty of the whole thing.
Yes.
It's just citizens like you who just decided, enough's enough.
We have to speak up.
We've got to stop this left-wing agenda that's going on in our country. And so at that point, you could tell it was a big movement.
Yes, and we decided we need, there's something here. People need a voice. They need a place to come and be with like-minded people. And
was it mostly through the internet? Is that how you, most people?
Talk radio?
Talk radio, internet?
Yeah, some internet. My daughter and I, she was 13 years old at the time. I was homeschooling her. I've homeschooled her whole life. But we printed off flyers, and we went door to door and invited people to come to the Tea Party. We went to businesses and put flyers in the businesses and just told everyone we knew for about 2 weeks or 3 weeks before it started to come. It was just amazing. So after that, we decided to hold meetings every month so that we could educate citizens on legislation that was taking place in Washington, or just really to educate people is the reason that we started, and to hold government officials accountable.
Now y'all still meet every month?
We do.
Where do y'all meet?
We meet at the Elmore Community Hospital.
Where does the Montgomery folks meet?
They meet at Pizza Perfect.
What about Dothan?
I'm not sure about Dothan.
You know that district, Becky, has changed so much since I was a boy. When I was a boy, I used to work for Bill Dickinson, our congressman. Right. I worked for him in Montgomery and in Washington. I went to Washington with Bill. He was our congressman for 28 years. And ironically, he beat my mama's uncle, George Grant. Wow. The history of that congressional district is Lister Hill was the congressman from the 2nd district, and it came down through. It didn't get Dothan. Dothan was in the old 3rd district. We used to have 10 seats in Congress. The 2nd always came down straight down from Montgomery to Andalusia. It was a Montgomery district. And Troy was always in it. And Lister Hill was in Congress from 1928 to 1930. He went to Congress in his 20s. Wow. And from a very stellar, outstanding family. His father was an international surgeon here in Montgomery. But the Hill family and the Gunner family had a political machine, and they were the powers in Montgomery at that time. Then when Lister Hill went to the United States Senate in 1938 following Hugo Black, then George Grant, my mama's uncle, who was kin to me, was a lawyer in Troy, and he served 28 years. Then Bill Dickinson beat him in the Goldwater landslide of '64. Dickinson was there 28 years. So it's only been in recent years that it's changed. That Bright was only there 2 years after. Well, no, then Everett from the Wiregrass was there about 15 years, and then Bright was there only 2 years, and then Martha Roby's only been there like 6 years now. But it's changed in this regard. Autauga and Elmore were not in the old 2nd district, but Autauga and Elmore, as you know, running for this district. Is where most of the votes are now. I'm not sure that Elmore is not bigger than Houston.
Yes,
It's the 2nd biggest county, isn't it? That's what's changed. People don't realize that 2nd district is right here in this river region.
And Dothan is a very important part of that.
It's probably 3rd. It's probably 3rd. And Coffee's pretty big. But that district is a river region district.
If I can just get back to speaking about the river region, and with our Tea Party, one of the things besides educating is when in 2011, when we had the horrible tornadoes that came through Elmore County, we activated our Tea Party to help clear debris and cut down trees and all that. And so when they had the floods in Columbia, which is now part of Columbia, is on the border of Georgia, down by Dothan. When they had the floods over the holidays, I got on the radio and asked people in the Wetumpka Tea Party, Wetumpka area, Montgomery, to bring supplies to our police department and help the victims. So over the weekend, last weekend, they brought 2 carloads and a truckload that we were able to carry down to Columbia on Monday, and we took a couple of crews with us from Montgomery to help with efforts in Elba.
Wow.
And so I just wanted to get back to the district has changed, and there's more to it than there used to be, and it reaches a long way. But even in Wetumpka, we are trying to help that community down in Columbia. They were really devastated by these floods, and Elba was really devastated.
I knew Elba
I'll have to show you pictures. You'll be amazed.
I knew Elba has been flooded over the years. They've had a terrible problem down there. But going back to that Tea Party thing, so you stayed active all this time. At what point in time did you think, I'm going to run for Congress?
Well, people have been asking me since 2010, it's really since we started the Tea Party,
Because
to run against Bright.
Bright, she won in 12 or 10?
2010.
She won in 10.
In the wave, the Tea Party wave.
Right, She won with that vote.
Yes, she did.
It was an anti-Obama, pro-Tea Party vote
Yes.
in 2010.
Yes.
And that's when it changed. I don't think this district could ever be anything but Republican.
Yeah, I don't either.
But going back, then she must not have voted that conservatively then.
No,
See, I haven't followed all her voting as much as.
Every when she was on the city council, she voted to raise taxes. She has not been a true conservative her entire life. That's one difference for me is I have never wavered or compromised on my conservative issues. But every conservative organization that does scorecards over key votes considers her time in Congress as an F. There's 8 that I can think of right off the top of my head. Big ones like Club for Growth, Freedom Works, Heritage Action, Freedom Index. All of these rate her time in Congress as an F.
Becky, what are some of
She's worse than Bobby Bright was.
You
15 points lower.
What are some of the issues that, and I can see you being as a true blue conservative Tea Party person you are, how you would want someone who represents one of the most conservative districts in the country to vote conservative. Give me some examples of why she's fallen back on that voting record. What are some key votes?
It's the spending is a huge one. She's voted for every bloated budget that has come her way. And for example, even the transportation bill that she voted for back in November, it had been bailed out 37 times since 2011. It's a horrible program. It's failing. But her answer was to throw more money at the problem, money we don't have. And she voted for Obama's executive amnesty. These are not the values of the 2nd Congressional District. And she has voted with leadership. She's voted for John Boehner 3 times and Paul Ryan, and she is lockstep with what they tell her to do, not with what the constituents want. Yeah. And as I'm on the campaign trail, the biggest complaint that we get is that she's not listening. And you can see that with her voting record.
Well, does she, do you find people that are, when you get out there visiting the district, do they perceive that she's not that conservative? Or they ask you why you running?
And they're angry because they see Washington is broken. And we have these career politicians that are in there and they're not making changes. It's status quo and things are getting worse and worse and they're tired of it. And that's why the Trump phenomenon, I think, that we're seeing across the country is they're tired of politicians.
It is. That is a phenomenon because there's a guy who's never been in politics before. I mean, as far as a public.
Right.
Well, you hadn't run for office before.
No, I have never run for office.
Never run for office before. One thing that's important in this district, though, and I don't know this is why I haven't followed Martha Roby's voting record as close as I probably should have. But one thing that I had Todd Strange sitting in this chair where you're sitting 3 or 4 years ago, and I made this comment to him because state funding has been cut so much. I says, I assumed, Becky, that Montgomery's largest employer was state government, and I said, I guess it's hurt your city's economy a lot because state government cut so much. He said, that's not my biggest employer. He says, it's hurt. And I said, and then he said, well, I guess Hyundai is. He says, no, it's Maxwell Gunner.
Yes.
And it goes further. We further got into that, Becky, that so many well-paid military people settle here too.
Yes, we did.
This is a military area.
Yes.
This is because of Maxwell Gunner being so important, this district, and you put Rucker in there with it in the Wiregrass. You have to be on armed services.
And that is why,
you would have to be on armed services.
And I want to be. As a military wife as well, I want to be. But that is one of my biggest concerns, is when my opponent is voting for these huge budget bills, it's taking away from the military. We need to be funding the military at their highest levels. You can still be a fiscal conservative and fully fund the military, but she is voting for all of these other programs that are just a total waste of money. So and it's, look at our military's being gutted.
The budget the last few years has actually cut military spending.
Yes, and that's a problem. That is a serious problem for this district.
I'll say this, I am an extreme physical conservative. I guess I might fit in the Tea Party because I'm very physically conservative. But the two things, I don't want to say we don't do a lot of things good in this country, But the two things makes us a great country is we have a strong military and we're able to grow our own food.
Right.
If you don't take care of farmers and military, and this district is a prime example of it.
Yeah.
That's what makes this district. It's what makes America.
Right.
If we let our military get behind, that's the reason
our
people are scared.
Our military is in serious trouble, and
so that's what that's
yes.
one of the reasons why you're mad about you're not so mad, but you're disappointed in her voting.
Yes.
Because the budget she's voting for
is hurting the military.
And it's hurting national government.
Yes. And you know, I would love to tell you a little bit about my background as a military wife. My husband spent 20 years in the Air Force, and he retired in 2005 and has been at the headquarters of the Alabama National Guard ever since. But when in 2002, and we lived all over the country, all over the world, I should say, with the military. I lived in Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, America. And
he was 20-year Air Force officer.
20-year Air Force. And so in 2002, the Air Force brought us to gunner. And we thought we'd only be here for a few years. He would retire and we would move on because we love moving. Well, we moved here and we loved Alabama, and it has been our home ever since. And it's been our choice to be here. But in 2002, and this is one of the reasons why I want to go represent people in Congress. Actually, it was in 2004, the Iraq War was really heating up. And my husband and I knew something, we both knew intuitively that something big was getting ready to happen in our lives. We didn't know what it was, but we both sensed it. We talked about it. We knew something was coming. He came home from work one day in January of 2004, and he told me that they were asking for people to go to Iraq to help the Iraqis stand up their own military. My husband's expertise was in military education and training and leadership skills, and so he volunteered. They were asking for volunteers, so he volunteered to go. So he came home and told me that they were asking for volunteers, and I said, well, what did you say? And he said, I told him I'd go. And I said, good, I'm so proud of you. But I honestly thought he wasn't going to come home. This was the big news. So we had about 3 weeks before he was going to leave, and I was proud of him. I wanted him to go, because I know he cares about liberty. I know he cares about freedom. He wanted to help these people be able to help themselves. So we planned his funeral.
You did? It was that dangerous a mission?
We had family pictures taken.
It was that dangerous a mission?
Oh, yes. Well, it was going to Iraq, and a lot of people were dying in Iraq at that time. We redid our wills, and we prepared to say goodbye for good. So he wrote me a letter, and he told me how to go on without him if he weren't to make it back. And the morning he left, I wrote him a letter. And I told him how proud I was of him, and that this is what he was made for, and that for our country, and for our family, and for those people in Iraq, that this is what he needed to do, and that I was freeing him and letting him go. I told him to kick butt and go do a great job. And we said goodbye, and I honestly didn't think he was coming back.
You really didn't think so?
No, no. Praise God, he did. He was there for about 5 or 6 months, and he was okay. He did have some non-combat injuries that he had to have taken care of at the VA when he came home, and that was a nightmare in itself. So as a military wife, I want the voters to know there is no one in this race who is going to fight for the military and the military families harder than I am, who's going to take care of the veterans harder than I am, because I know what it's like. I know as a wife what it's like. I've seen my husband have to go through surgeries at the VA, and the scars prove that it wasn't a great experience. And you know, I want to be the voice to stand up for the military community in District 2. Yeah. It's so important. And I love our military people. You know, I really have a heart for them.
And we have a lot of military folks in this district.
We do. We do. And like you said, this is a great retirement community.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama is a wonderful place. Who would have ever thought we would end up in the South? And I hate the humidity, but you know, it's really growing on me, and I don't like being in the cold anymore. So
where all have y'all been during
We
your
met
20s?
in Germany. I was over there student teaching at Ramstein Elementary
Where'd you
School.
grow up?
I grew up in Colorado, in a beautiful little ski town in Colorado, in the mountainy snow, and it was a wonderful place. My background is in elementary education.
And you were teaching over there in Germany?
I was over there doing my student teaching, living with my brother who was stationed there. Lo and behold, my brother had a guy working for him whose name was Becky Gerritson, And that's how we got to know each other, was while I was over there student teaching. So we lived in Germany, and then we moved to Guam. We were at the Air Force Academy. We were at Minot, North Dakota.
That was pretty cool.
Which is a drastic change, and from there we came here. That was a big...
How long were y'all in North Dakota?
Oh, 2 years.
I bet you didn't like that, did you?
Actually, we loved it.
Did
My
you?
husband didn't love it so much because he had to get out in the middle of it and work in it. He was out in the missile fields, but I was homeschooling my daughter. We homeschooled her from birth practically up until she graduated from high school, and it was a wonderful place.
Was the base up there as large? It wasn't as large as Maxwell Gunner.
Oh no, it's probably about the same.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was that important?
Yeah, well, it was a mission. I mean, it was a missile base. So we had a lot of airplanes, a lot of missiles.
Was it because of its location? Was that why it was a missile base?
Yes, yes.
Close
strategically
to Russia.
located.
Probably close to Russia.
Well, they could launch those missiles
Becky,
quickly.
tell me what's your take on this ISIS situation. I think that's going to be a problem.
I think it is a huge problem.
What do you think Congress needs to do? Just keep our military strong?
We must build up our military. We must, but we must protect our borders. I believe in putting a pause on these refugees that are coming in. We can't vet them. We know by looking at Europe what they're all about. And I shouldn't say all of them, but many of them that are going there, it is to change the culture. Sharia law is not compatible with American law. Islam is not just a religion. It is a political ideology that is at war with American values, and we need to be very careful. But I think we need definitely to protect our borders and build up our military.
Well, tell me your take on how we. I think we need to get other countries. They've got more to lose than we do. For example, Russia. This may help bond us with this new breach we've got going with Russia right now. You know, that they've got more to lose with ISIS to me than we do, proximity-wise. Tell me your take on the whole ISIS thing.
I'm very concerned at the leadership of this country. How, like you have said, you know, we're not respected around the world anymore. And we have so many enemies now, and they're all kind of banding against us, and then our pretty much hands off of Israel and not trying to help them at all. That's very concerning to me as well. But our foreign policy, we need a leader in the White House who is going to drive our foreign policy in a way that's going to make us strong. I believe in peace through strength.
Now, you know, one of the cardinal rules I was raised in politics is you don't get involved in other races. I'm not going to ask you who you're for, but you can volunteer if you want to say I'm thinking one of the other candidates. That's what's going to drive the vote up in your race in March 1st, which is right around the corner. Is that presidential preference primary is getting a lot of interest.
I think the SEC primary was a brilliant idea.
I do too. I'm glad we're going to be a part of it.
I feel like we're a player now.
We're a player. And we'll see some of the candidates. It'll drive up vote in your race. I don't know how your campaign perceives a high turnout, whether that's good, bad, or what, but I think you're going to have a higher than normal turnout in the 2nd district race.
I think so.
Because it's driven by the presidential race.
Yes.
And some of them may be even out of the race by then.
Yes, after Iowa and New Hampshire, I think we'll have some dropouts before
We'll have some
March.
winnowing, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It looks like Trump and Rubio and Cruz are in to stay. You know, I don't know how Bush is doing anything. To show you how poorly I am on predicting presidential politics, 8 years ago, I wrote a column and said Fred Thompson was going to win the Republican nomination and was going to be president. And I wrote it, about a week later he dropped out. You know, so that shows.
Don't write about this.
No.
Don't write about me.
I can usually pick state races on a state level, but presidentially, and I even thought early on that Jeb Bush would be the Republican nominee. Yeah. He could well be, but it doesn't look like it this time.
Yeah, he's way down in the polls.
He's way down, so I'm not a very good predictor on national presidential races. But
well, our campaign is really going well. We have a lean, mean team. And we have so many great volunteers. We're making, thousands of calls into the district every week. We have raised
through volunteers.
Yes, through volunteers. We have raised, and there was an article in AL.com this week talking about, Martha's got $730,000 in her bank, and then they quoted me as having -8 in mine, but it's all, I wasn't even in the race at the time of those numbers. I hadn't even announced my candidacy yet. And if you sign a contract with someone, those numbers show up on your report, even though you don't owe them the money. Anyway,
right.
But in 3 months' time, we've raised over $100,000 from all just grassroots people. No
What's your average contribution?
Yeah, I don't know that yet. It's probably $30, $40. We have so many donors.
You've raised $100,000. Your average is $30. That's amazing.
I'm telling you, the support is
That's
there.
grassroots.
That is grassroots.
That's grassroots because incumbent Congress people can raise money at the drop of a hat.
And we've got some great endorsements that are getting ready to come out very soon that will really drive those numbers up. And but I have not only support in District 2 and throughout the state of Alabama, I have people all over the nation that are supporting this campaign.
Good.
And it's great, you know. It's
well,
but it's the people on the ground. We are door to door knocking, and really, it's making a difference.
You know, there are signs that over the years, television has been the primary medium for campaigns, but presidentially, at least in that venue, you're seeing a decline in the results of television advertising. I don't know if that's true of congressional, senatorial races or state races, but presidentially, the three prime examples are Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, and Rick Perry.
Yep.
All spent all their money on television ads.
And they're out.
I mean, two of them are completely out of the race. I mean, Bush has spent all spent all of his money on television. So I don't know that television is the ultimate medium that it used to be, and it's very expensive.
Yes.
TV is very expensive. You know?
It's important, especially in District 2. It is an important avenue for advertising, but so many people don't watch TV anymore.
They don't.
And it's online. Everything
especially
is
under
online.
40. Under 40, they get the news from. And I don't see how people poll now, Becky, because everybody uses a cell phone. Everybody don't have access to cell phones, do they? Numbers, do they?
Yeah, some do.
Okay, so they're able to get to poll to people on that thing. Well, I tell you one thing, it's fun getting out there and seeing everybody, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. I am a servant leader and have been through the Tea Party. I love people. I love being out with people. I love hearing their concerns. I want to be their voice. So to me, that is the really fun part.
And you like helping people because that gives you a good example of y'all going and helping folks in Columbia and Elba with the flood this week.
And anyone who's listening who donated to that effort, I just want to make sure they know how much we appreciate it. And the folks down in Columbia, Officer Barnes is the one heading up that. He wanted to make sure that we were, you know, telling everyone up here they appreciate our help so much.
Good. Well, Becky, I hate to tell you, our time's up.
Well, thank you.
It goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
It does. It's great talking with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Folks, our guest tonight on Alabama Politics has been Becky Gerritson from Wetumpka in Elmore County, running for 2nd Congressional District. She's a leader in the Tea Party movement, not only in the state of Alabama, but nationwide. The election's just right around the corner, y'all. Our election is March 1st. So, again, I thank our viewers for watching. We thank Becky Gerritson for being with us. And I hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you very much. Becky, good to have you.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.